I'm setting off a motion in the last 7 years in India, which is a movement creating school leaders to change lives and learning. So this has been started because I used to run a school. I thought, it's absolutely lovely walking into a school where children are happy. Anybody who has been in a school where children are happy know what it feels like. But then it felt like there's a huge bunch of schools out there. There's 1.5 million schools. This is a good way to talk to each other. Everybody just talks to each other, and I can talk to the air. So I think this is like excellent, fantastic way of doing things. So that's the interesting thing is that we have a network now of 450 school leaders who are part of the movement of bringing quality into schools, because access we have achieved as a country, quality we don't have as yet, not across all the schools. And so we began with the idea that how do you bring quality, because that requires a change of mindset and a change of behavior as well, and that's what started us off. So the impact that we've had so far, we've gone right across the country. We've got more than 400 schools which have been doing repeat reviews, and the purpose was to develop actually a better classroom, right? So the teaching and learning we found that that's started changing in the classroom. We have found that 7,000 stakeholders have been trained, who have been trained in school self-review, are actually interested in what good schools look like. We found 75% schools with more than one assessor, because we train assessors first, and I'll explain it to you. They actually have principals who now guide, model, review the implementation of teaching and learning in their schools, which means they get out of their offices and they get into the classroom. And that is something that's almost like a revolution, because principals tend to stay in the principal's office. And we've got them out of the principal's office into classrooms. Not because they have to scare the teachers, not because they have to frighten people, but because they have to know what's happening in their classrooms, otherwise how are they going to make any change? So one of the things that you will find, since I'm talking to a group of people who are working with schools and with the education system, all your efforts with teachers comes to nothing if the leadership is not invested. And if your leadership is invested, you can be sure that school is going to move forward. So we only work with leaders and governors or owners of schools. We don't work with the teachers. We don't work with anybody else. So the 450 people that we've developed as our army is not the end. We are looking at 100,000 schools, so we need 100,000 people. And you'll think that there must be something crazy about us, because if you've got only 450 in 7 years, how are you going to get like that many more, right? So we do have another arm. But the problem that we saw was that there's a very quick change in the ecosystem. I don't know if anybody was in the hall listening to somebody saying Alvin Toffler. Everybody has read Alvin Toffler? Yeah? And we know change is sort of exponentially getting faster. So there's a huge change in the world and in the ecosystem. There's a very slow changing education system. And that's where the problem comes in. And so the school is caught in that crossfire, right? So you have lots and lots of things changing, the children having a completely different childhood. I don't think your children have the kind of childhood you had, and you didn't have the kind of childhood your parents had or your grandparents had. So there's a complete change in the way children are being brought up, in the way children are experiencing the world, but there is no quick change like that in the school. And so what do you do when you have a situation like this? What you work towards is making the system responsive and flexible, otherwise it doesn't work, right? And how do you achieve that is really by creating a shared understanding of what does it mean when we say education? Are we talking only about English and mathematics, or are we talking about skills, counseling? Are we talking about vocational guidance? Are we talking about brain development? What are we talking about when we say education? And so creating that shared understanding needs to happen. We need to understand what is quality, curriculum, all of the big words that people use all the time. They have a totally different glossary. So people are saying the same thing, but they mean something completely different. In my school, we had a fantastic curriculum, a democracy curriculum for students, And I thought it was going fantastically well till I walked into the staff room and the teacher said, you know, ma'am, we shouldn't be letting them elect the leaders, the school leaders. And I said, why not? And they said, because the school leaders are often children who are not the best children in terms of, the best as in academically brightest. So I said, so what's the problem with that? They said, well, they don't listen to us, the teachers, right? The leaders don't listen to us. They argue with us. So I said, what do you want? They said, we want to nominate the student council. I said, but that's not democracy, right? And they said, well, we'll change the definition of democracy. So that's when you say the glossary they are using is very different from the glossary I was using, and we needed to come to an understanding of what is democracy. How do we really understand discussion? How do we accept the fact that children are going to say things we don't want to hear? And how do we make that a teaching and a learning experience in the school? So that's where I feel that's where the whole country needs to start talking about these things. We don't talk about things that are uncomfortable. We tend to say, culture, and everybody says, yes, that's a good word. And then we say secular, and everybody says that's not a good word anymore. But it used to be a good word 5 years back, right? It used to be a very good word. So when did that change? And what happened? And how did it happen? So we have to start talking about these things together in the same room. So the way we do it is we get the school leader to identify a group of people from within the school who looks at the school alongside him or her with us as the external people. And that's called the adhyayan of the school, the study of the school. And adhyayan means studying in a way that you as a reader become transformed. So in the process of studying their school, the people who are studying the school change the way they think, change the way they talk to each other, the way in which they interact with each other, listen to each other around the table. So if you were to look at what's happening, the school leader's self-efficacy, if it's high, that person is the kind of person who comes on the top of your education world ranking. Because you have school leaders in India who are fantastic, who are really good, who all of you find you love them because it's easy to sell to them. They get you. They understand what you're saying and what you're trying to do, and they're very few. Yeah? They're really few. They're less than very few. They're less than 1%. So that's the lot that you see over here on the top, right? And they're the ones who are doing person-driven improvement. The minute they leave the school, what happens to the school? Plummets down. It just disappears. So that's not sustainable. And then you have the ecosystem-driven situation like Mr. Sisodia is doing in Delhi, for example. Right? He's saying, you've got to change. You've got to move, and I will make it happen. So that's the ecosystem-driven change. The minute the government changes, what's going to happen? We don't know. So that's where you feel, that's not sustainable. That is not a long-term solution. So what is a long-term solution is when the leader and the ecosystem together understand the same thing and drive change. And I'm leaving for the UK, so so I will have to leave in about half an hour, so I will not be able to use my laptop forever. Is there another laptop that can be used for this? Can you bring it as soon as you can? Yeah. I'm happy to. I believe a lot of people don't have this attachment. That's right. Well, he doesn't have the attachment, so that's why. So do you want to use this one, or do you want to use theirs? Yeah? Okay, so try that.